Like we said, 11:30 on the dot. And this was one of the easiest ones to guess. Number one, I said it on social media. Number two, we've been teasing it for about 2 months now. And today is the day we talk Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga, one of the most fascinating. Can we still call him a prospect? Is that okay?
He's 22 years old.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating players.
He's younger than Devin Carter.
Players / we can't. I'm still trying to get over the all rookie teams. Please, Kyle, please. As we look at what Jonathan Kuminga has done throughout his career, one of the more confusing situations. He is a project that went to a team that didn't have time to work on the project. We've seen that before. And this season, he dealt with a ton of injuries. He only played 47 games. In those 47 games, Jonathan Kuminga averaged 15.3 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, 2.2 assists on 45% from the field, 30% from three, 66% from the free throw line. This kid is raw. This kid has some raw talent. He can jump out the gym. He can do some things defensively. Still trying to find his way. I think he's a better one-on-one defender than a team defender right now. But the reality is, and you know, there was a video going around of him and Joe Lacob kind of chumming it up together. And Joe Lacob has been very vocal as to how much he likes Jonathan Kuminga, and he was an advocate to draft Jonathan Kuminga. I think personally they just really liked his hyper athleticism, and that's something that the Warriors haven't had since Jason Richardson, right? Steph is one of the best players of all time, but you know, they haven't really had a Skywalker like Jonathan Kuminga, but doesn't really fit what Steve Kerr's trying to do. And Steve Kerr was very interesting after the Warriors lost. Steve Kerr almost sounding like he was trying to plead his case to Jonathan Kuminga to stay, as he said that he would give more runway to Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga playing together. I don't see how that's going to work with neither of them being able to shoot the basketball from the three-point range right now. So, you know, we'll see what happens there. People were all convinced that Jonathan Kuminga was out the door, and then the Valkyrie game happens. Jonathan Kuminga is sitting next to Joe Lacob, and they're laughing, having a good old time, and now a lot of people are saying, well, maybe he does stay. But let's assume that he doesn't, because I still don't see it happening. A lot of people want to obviously, Warrior fans want to throw him in to a Giannis deal or something like that. The report was, and we talked to Greg Swartz yesterday, the report was, and it was great information because not even I had really heard what the deal was. Apparently, Jonathan Kuminga was looking for $30 million. And by the way, hang on for our Brock Purdy conversation, because Adam Schefter dropped a banger earlier today about what Brock Purdy initially asked for. But back to Kuminga. Kuminga apparently was looking for $30 million a year. And the Warriors said, you're out of your mind. You're not getting $30 million a year. And nobody, as you can go into restricted free agency, nobody is paying that for you. He then only plays 47 games. And Jonathan Kuminga, look, you go into these negotiations, and we all do it. Hey, well, I think I'm worth this. And your employer says, I'm glad you think that, but we're not paying you that. And I don't think anybody else. Maybe you could go find somebody else to pay you that, which is what the Warriors said. And Jonathan Kuminga is not getting $30 million. So that brings us to what Jonathan Kuminga can get in the market, right, via a sign and trade situation, and what we think he's worth and what you'd be able to give up for Jonathan Kuminga. So, Kyle, let's get right on into it. What is the situation with Jonathan Kuminga, and what have you cooked up to get the young Skywalker to Sacramento?
So after the Warriors first got eliminated from the playoffs, you tried to have the vision, the belief that somehow the Kings would be able to move Zach LaVine in order to get off of to get Jonathan Kuminga.
Yes, that
clear.
Yeah, that was a mistake. Yes.
If they gave him the $30 million a year, then they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would. Maybe they would do it just so they don't have to pay Zach LaVine. But besides the point, more realistically is they would move one of their secondary pieces financially to make it work. The first thing we have to figure out, though, is what is the most you, Allen Stiles, not what you think he's going to get, not what the market will say he's get. What is the most you would be willing to pay per year for Jonathan Kuminga? What is the top dollar? This is the most we can offer value.
I'm looking here just as a kind of a measuring stick as I see some of the names out here. You know, John Collins getting 25, and a lot of people think that's a bad contract. Draymond's getting 25. Obviously, we know, and Terry Rozier's getting 24. So it's a bit confusing, right? A DeAndre Hunter, who I think is better than Jonathan Kuminga, but he is older. DeAndre Hunter's only 24, but that's for a different day. I just don't know that I can get past about 23 million.
23 per year. So that'd be.
I don't know. 25 feels like a lot. I know there's some bad deal contracts out there, but I don't want to give him a bad contract.
So 4 year, 100 million is where you're like, whoa. Let's chill here.
Yes, that feels like a lot to me. It feels like a lot for the most part. Then I look at, again, Nick Claxton getting 24, and I'm okay. And then you see John Collins at 25. Okay, but those are not good contracts.
Sure, but it could be a Dennis Schroeder situation where it's like, hey, the best offer on the table is 4 years, $78 million.
Right.
And the Warriors have no reason to offer him more because they can just match whatever the other team throws out. So you're saying
you got to outbid the Warriors a little bit.
No, not the Warriors. You have to outbid the other teams. Again, I don't know. Is it going to be the Nets? Is it going to be Washington? I don't know who's in the Kuminga game, but you have to outbid those teams and then have it be a number that the Warriors would be okay letting him go for. But again, in this situation, the Warriors are getting something back in return. If it's the Nets can offer him 4 years, $100 million, and just sign him into cap space. They don't need, the Warriors sign and trade permissions, essentially. The Kings just have to outbid the Nets and anyone else who wants to get in on the Kuminga game.
Let's just assume that 23 will get it done.
All right. So if we say 4 years, 92, that's $23 million a year. Ultimately, for sign and trade purposes, the only thing that matters is the first year. So you can kind of coordinate it from there. If we average it at 23, then the Kings could flip Malik Monk, the pizza guy.
I'm a pizza guy.
For Jonathan Kuminga, and then they would have to include we'll say top 10 protected first round pick. So a play in.
Why? Because
Kuminga's
22.
Kuminga's better than Malik Monk value wise, probably. If Kuminga's getting 23 and Malik just signed for 18, the market's telling you that Kuminga's better than Malik Monk. So the Kings would have to throw in a play-in tournament protected first-round pick to the Warriors.
Not this again, man.
So, anyways, to make it work without having to include another player, his contract has to be between like 11 and 26 million in the first year, and they can trade him for Malik Monk straight up.
Do you do it? 916-339-1140. Let's keep the conversation going. Will I say yes or no to Kyle's proposed deal? Kyle, one more time for everyone listening.
Sign and trade Jonathan Kuminga for 4 years, $92 million. And in exchange, the Kings send to Golden State Malik Monk and a play-in protected first-round pick next year.
Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Live and local.
It's Allen Stiles
on Sactown Sports.
you want Jonathan Kuminga, it's going to cost you. Now, Kyle only has one trade to get it done today, so he's making it especially tough.
Well, I assume no one wants to trade Keegan for Kuminga.
No, nobody wants to do that.
Exactly.
So before the break, our trade target, Kyle, proposed a trade where the Kings would give up Malik Monk.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
And a 2026 first-round pick that is top 10 protected. Basically, miss the play-in. You make the play-in, you lose the pick.
Or win the lottery.
Or win the lottery. So it's probably gone. And we are asking whether or not you would do that deal. Me personally, I'm not doing that deal unless it's time to rebuild. That's where I'm at. I don't see how Jonathan Kuminga at 22 years old, it would be great to have young talent, but I don't know what it would look like with Jonathan Kuminga and Domantas Sabonis. I don't know how that would work. He doesn't distribute the basketball. He's essentially got a fastball, right? We were joking about Colin Kaepernick earlier this week and how Colin Kaepernick couldn't really throw fades because he just had a fastball, right? And it was really good fastball, but that's all he has. Jonathan Kuminga, can get downhill, and it's beautiful to watch. But he's essentially, and that's why people joke and call him Baby Giannis. That's who he is. So if I'm doing this deal, you should probably just move Domantas Sabonis next and get more young talent and essentially start a rebuild, which could be headlined by Jonathan Kuminga. But I don't know if I'm giving up Malik Monk and a first rounder. I don't know how much Jonathan Kuminga helps this team. That's my holdup.
So in this situation, let's say Levine is the number one. They bring in a point guard who can score, but is maybe older. DeJounte Murray's just kind of the plug-in that we use. Do you think they would be better served? Because Malik obviously wouldn't be on the team anymore, so he's not the number 3. Would they be better served trying to develop Kuminga as a number 3, or see if Keegan Murray is worth playing at that number 3? Because at this point, they're theoretically extending both of them. They're saying Kuminga is our 3 of the future, and Keegan is our 4 of the future, and we're going to see how they play off of each other.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that lineup, right? So it would be Sabonis, Keegan, Zach LaVine, and Kuminga.
And then a point guard.
Yeah, I mean, you have definitely different gears that you can go to. To me, it's just Kuminga is still so raw. I don't know that he's going to be able to evolve. And again, what are we attempting to do? So Kuminga's getting our hey, let's feed Kuminga the basketball, and Keegan, okay, well, that sounds like you're essentially rebuilding and focusing on those two guys. Or it's, no, Zach LaVine, you still need to take 20 shots a game, and whatever Domantas Sabonis wants to do offensively, then it's, okay, well, what's up with, how are we going to get Keegan there and Kuminga there? I just think that move doesn't really make you better as far as actually competing. I don't think that team is going to the playoffs.
You're just banking on Kuminga can one day be a number 3. Because essentially, if you're handing out the $23 million contract, you're saying he's going to be our number 3. And in an offense with Domantas Sabonis, you're essentially saying he's going to be your number 2.
Right now. And I don't think he's ready right now.
Or at least that's what you're paying him for, right? Because next year you have the buffer of Keon Ellis, right? Once, again, if you make this move, once Keon Ellis is either gone or also getting $15 million a year, then all of a sudden you have to make room for all of those people. Or, like you said, we're just rebuilding, and, Kuminga can be a number 2, Keegan can be a number 3, Keon Ellis can play. Doesn't matter because we're not trying to compete right now.
I mean, look, you know what? If you're getting him on a 4-year deal, I will kind of counter my own argument and say this. To your point, maybe this is the realistic path for them to quote unquote rebuild, but Vivek doesn't know that they're rebuilding, right? How about that? So it's, hey, we have Jonathan Kuminga on a 4-year deal. Okay. You give that a go for about 2 years. You extend Keegan, and clearly you have those two guys, right? Zach LaVine is going to opt in, so you have 2 years there. Zach LaVine is who he is. There'll be days where he scores 40 against the Hornets and days where he just kind of chills. So you're going into this season thinking these seasons thinking this is about Keegan Murray, getting Keegan Murray there. We just extended him, and Jonathan Kuminga. Zach LaVine's going to be gone in 2 years. And when Zach LaVine's gone, we can, with that $47 million gone, we will have had 2 years where we have pushed Keegan to the forefront, pushed Jonathan Kuminga to the forefront. Now we have about $50 million to play with and bring in somebody that we think, based on those 2 years, will help those guys. And then at that point in time, we can make a decision. Maybe Domantas Sabonis says he wants out. Who knows? There's now only 2 more years left on Domantas Sabonis' contract, and he can make a decision where, hey, do you like what we're doing here? Do you not like it? If you want out, we can have that conversation. You're 30 years old now, so it's a great time for it. So that would be an argument. Again, the argument is I'm against it if it's about let's get to a 5 seed or a 4 seed. I'm for it if it's about we're kind of hybrid tearing it down without people knowing. We're just going to not be that good for 2 years, get LaVine off the books. Maybe LaVine has a career year next season and it works out.
Or maybe we extend LaVine at $20 million a year.
Sure, which has been talked about with Sam Amick and others, right? I think with Howard Beck and others. And you see what happens with Domantas Sabonis, and you're able to bring some other pieces in. I can kind of talk myself into it. I'm just not into it if it's about let's get to that 4 or 5 seed. I don't think the Kings are doing that, but I would be okay with it if the understanding is, look, maybe we get lucky and Zach LaVine has a career season and Kuminga takes that leap immediately, and same with Keegan Murray. But this is really about pushing those two guys to the forefront who are recently extended, and in 2 years, we believe this is going to pay out for us.
Right, and this whole hypothetical that you've just outlined is contingent on Kuminga becoming a 22-point-per-game scorer who shoots 50% from the field, 35% from 3, and can do that on a consistent basis, because people don't recognize it this way because it doesn't feel like it, but the gap between being a 16-point-per-game scorer in the NBA and a 21-point-per-game scorer in the NBA is the difference between, being able to compete for a play-in spot and being potentially out of the playoffs altogether. The margins are so thin. We just saw it this past year. De'Aaron Fox was a 26-point-per-game scorer. Zach LaVine was a 22-point-per-game scorer with better efficiency numbers, and everyone universally agrees the Kings lost that trade.
Yeah.
So these gaps are not as close as they may seem, and the whole thing is predicated on Kuminga making that leap from a 16-point-a-game guy, a number 4 on a good team, to being a number 3 or number 2 on a really good team. And you could say the same thing for Keegan. I just think we all agree that Kuminga has a higher offensive ceiling than potentially Keegan does.
I would agree. It would be something or someone, and this is why the Warriors drafted him, that the Kings haven't had in a while as far as just a pure athletic specimen that can do some things offensively with room to grow. And he's only 22. Like you said, he's younger than Devin Carter. So the Kings got to get younger. Whitey Gleason has talked about the Kings getting younger. And if you can't do it through the draft, would you rather trade a future draft pick for a gamble, right? Even though it might not cost you money, for a gamble in a draft for a low first round pick, or trade somebody in who you kind of know what he is in Malik Monk. Maybe you're able to talk the Warriors out of that top 10 protected pick, whatever the case may be, for somebody that is a bit proven, because we still don't know Kuminga's. If the Nets, I keep saying, if the Nets get Giannis, they're not looking at Jonathan Kuminga. So that's another team that would be out of that conversation. and you kind of just go from there. So I think I might have convinced myself into it if you're prepared to not be terribly good for the next couple seasons. And the argument is, and I think somebody said on the text line, Allen, I already don't think they're going to be good the next couple of seasons. So what are we actually talking about?
Right, and it's not that big of a gamble, right? A 25, unless Kuminga just falls off the face of the earth, a $23 to $25 million a year player is not this immovable contract either. It's not,
especially if you're in Sacramento. Look what we've seen some contracts here.
You can pigeonhole him as a number 4 if you have to, and move him to somewhere else if it goes bad. But you're making the point that, say it works immediately, and he's your number 3, and you have Levine, and you have Sabonis, and now Keegan, it opens up the offense a little more for him, and he shoots 40% from 3. Maybe they say, Keegan, go back to just spot-up shooting. Yeah. Then maybe the time is, okay, next summer, we have to convince Sabonis that this thing is going to work. Now we make the big all-in trade, throw caution into the wind, get a third all-star, and see if we can make this thing work. That's kind of the best case scenario if you take the risk.
And look, I know they don't play the same position exactly because of how they play, but okay, you wanted, I know it was a different regime, but you wanted to go out and get Devin Carter. If you move Malik Monk, now let's see if Devin Carter can actually play basketball. So I think I'm in. I think I've convinced myself to be in, because what are we doing these next couple seasons anyway? Speaking of the state of the kingdom, who better to break down whether or not the Kings could, should, or would make a move like this than Keith Smith of Spa Track,